now, but if it is possible, it's definitely interesting. And, you know, after some things rotate out, this might be the way Shaman plays the game. But yeah, Jade Lightning specifically, man, if you're playing a Jade deck, what a nuts card this is. If you're not playing a Jade deck, then we're not really going to hear about this card at all, right? It's like Cthulhu's Chosen, man. Either it's nuts and everyone's playing it, or, you know, nobody's playing it, and you never hear from this card again. But it is very strong, especially in the Jade Golem deck, yeah. Jade Chieftain, Battlecry, summon a Jade Golem, give it taunt. I mean, this really just depends on how many good Jade Golem summoning cards there are in Shaman, and how many cheaper ones you're playing in your deck to enable these kinds of effects, because you're going to play some of the neutral ones in Shaman probably. There aren't that many good Jade Golem summoners in this class, outside of Jade Lightning and the weapon. So overall, Jade Chieftain, like, it's playable, but until I actually play with the card a lot, it's tough for me to say how good it is or how bad it is. 7 mana is, like, pretty reasonable, so, I mean, if you're getting, like, at least a 4/4 out of this, I'd say it's worth it. Getting a 3/3 is, like, depends on the board. If they can kill it immediately, it's not that impressive. But yeah, Jade Chieftain's an interesting card. Again, I think current mid-range Shaman is just too broken for you to really want to change that many cards. But if you do change cards and you want to try out the Jade Golem package, that is certainly an option now. Then we got Devolve, which is a card that I have no idea how to evaluate. Actually none at all. Just like normal Evolve, man. Normal Evolve is also, like, the most impossible to evaluate card. Like, you can imagine these scenarios where it's absolutely broken, but you can also imagine, like, I don't know. You can also imagine scenarios where it's kind of dead in your hand. People aren't really flooding the board against Shaman too much right now anyway, because they're used to, you know, 4 AoE spells being in the deck. Do you need more than 4 AoE spells? I don't know. I think you play one of this and just try it out and see how it plays. I think it's at its best in a mid-rangey type of Shaman list, because you're going to want to basically shrink your opponent's minions and then trade into them yourself. This is going to help your rogue matchup, because Devolve is very good against stealth minions, of course. So it's just an interesting card. Like, I don't think it's broken, but it is playable, I think. I think it's probably going to be a tech call to hard counter certain things. You know, it's gonna counter, like, I don't know, things with stealth, Doomsayers, Death Rattles. It's good against, like, N'Zoth decks. There's a lot of interesting things you can do with it, but I think it's going to be more of a metagame call. I don't think you just jam 2 of this in your deck. I think that would be probably a mistake. We got Jade Claws, Battlecry, summon a Jade Golem. I mean, yeah, you know, same thing as I said about the other Jade cards, right? Like, if you're playing the Jade Golem Shaman deck, you're going to play this. Jade Claws is balanced, unlike the last Claws they released. You know, it's only a 2-mana 2/2. Honestly, the Jade Golem deck looks kind of aggressive for Shaman. It's weird because Jade Lightning and Jade Claws just want to go face. But then you have this Jade Chieftain, which is like this weird mid-rangey duder, which you might not even have. Yeah, it's possible that there's a small Jade sub-theme to like a more aggressive Shaman list that's out there. But, you know, until I really play with this kind of card, it's really tough to evaluate these kinds of mechanics. Like, it's just like Cthulhu. Like, is there a deck there that's kind of viable? Yes. Is that deck like tier 1 and you're going to see it a lot? Maybe. Is that deck completely worse than every other archetype of Shaman? Maybe. Until you actually play with it, you can't say one way or the other. It is a playable deck. The question is it the Shaman deck or is it a Shaman deck? A lot like, you know, all the Farsight lists and stuff like that. So we'll see. Weak stat line and the override on that sucks, but it's not the end of the world. And we got Jinyu Water Speaker, which I think is worse than Healing Wave, I think. Good stats, obviously, but I just... Like, okay, if I'm playing a control-y Shaman deck, and I want a healing effect, I already have access to Healing Wave. This guy gives me stats, but if I'm playing a control Shaman deck, I need a win condition. What's my win condition going to be? Probably Barnes, Rag, N'Zoth, just like every other deck in the game. So, in that kind of deck, this is bad as Barnes. So I'd rather play a Healing Wave and then just like Barnes into Sylvanas or Karin. You know, that kind of stuff. Like, it's not a bad card by any means. It's actually a very good healing card. Very, very good. It's better than Healbot, I would say. But, with that said, Shaman didn't play Healbot very often, and if it did, it was at a time when there wasn't really a refined... Like, Shaman didn't have that many playables to make a broken deck like it does now. So we'll see. I mean, if you want a third healing effect, you can play this on top of Healing Waves. But, yeah, it really just depends. I want to be doing broken stuff in the standard format. I don't want to be grinding out games with my little life gain cards and some card draw and some removal. There's too many expansions in the game to play the game fairly right now. You have to be doing broken stuff. And I think N'Zoth is broken stuff, and Healing Waves is better with that kind of strategy. Then we got Finders Keepers, which is discover a card with Overload, and Overload's one itself. It's kind of like a 2-mana cycle. I really do not like this card, even with Unbound Elemental. To spend 2 mana overall to discover another card that's going to make me lose mana, it's just weak, I think. I don't expect Finders Keepers to see much play at all. Even an aggressive like Unbound Elemental list, I think Finders Keepers is just weak. It is a way to like generate more burn, I guess. I don't actually know how many cards with Overload exist. If I go through every single one of them and calculate the odds on actually getting like direct damage off of this, that's kind of interesting. Even getting like Elemental Destruction in an aggro deck is pretty good, because you 5 times to going to your burn. It's possible that there's an Overload heavy Shaman list that plays this, but that class just has such a good deck already, you just don't need to make that many changes. I don't think adding Finders Keepers is going to make it better. The Lotus Illusionist I think is pretty bad. It was a very exciting card when I first saw it, but the thing is, the card has counterplay, which is great. I like the design of it, right? I just don't think it'll be competitively viable. I love the design of the card. Your opponent knows it's going to do insane stuff, so they're going to go out of their way to kill it. It creates this tension on the board. And then, the issue here is, it only transforms if you attack face. So if you could play it and then trade with it, and it evolves after the trade, that would be an incredible card. But the fact that you're forced to like play a 4-mana 3/5 that also doesn't affect the board because you have to go face to upgrade your minion, that's like very sketchy, right? You only want to go face in like face-oriented Shaman decks, which are going to prefer to play Flame Wreath. So I don't expect Lotus Illusionist to see too much play. That deck doesn't need more 4-drops. It's not like completely unplayable, but it's on the weaker end, and you know, Shaman's just so good right now that the better a deck is, the harder it is for... The better a deck is, the better a card has to be to make it into that list. So, yeah. Moving on, we got White Eyes. White Eyes, the last Shaman card of the set. 5-mana 5/5 Taunt, Death Rattle. This is the future of N'Zoth, man. This is like a flashy example of where I think RNG has gone in this expansion, which is towards a type of randomness that's based around card draw and cards in your hand, rather than on-board randomness, which seems like a very conscious decision from them, and I like that. There's a lot less juggles, and there's a lot more how good is this card based on when I draw it, which is a different kind of RNG. It's not... I prefer this to Arcane Missiles, to be honest. If my card does what it says it will do all of the time, it's less frustrating to play. Will you draw badly and still get tilted and lose because of it? Of course. But when you're drawing badly, at least the cards that you're playing will do what they say they will do, as opposed to stuff like Arcane Missiles or Flame Juggler, where it's like, you know, 50% to just wreck you. Anyway, White Eyes, I think it is competitively viable. It's a card I have to play with a lot to figure out if it's good enough. It's very, very borderline, I think, for just slapping in a normal mid-range Shaman. Like, I think it's good enough in that deck because you're going to play Barnes anyway. Like, I think this is good enough in that deck, but it's close, right? Like, you could argue Fire Elemental or Alakir or whatever card is better. So, yeah, White Eyes is certainly playable. We'll see if he's enough to make even his Shaman deck a solid archetype, but I'm a fan. It adds more of that card draw RNG that I'm talking about, right? Like, if it dies and you draw your 10-10 immediately, then you're in a winning position. It takes you a long time to draw your 10-10, it's not that good. So it's better in attrition decks, I guess, because it's at its best when you draw the 10-10 at some point. That's another card that makes Control Warrior's life very hard as well. Alright, so excuse me. We got Blast Crystal Potion. Destroy a minion and one of your mana crystals. This is a card that I think is just pretty terrible. Like, even in Reno, where you want more card removal, like Second Soul, you're only really happy playing this card on turn 10. If you can be really happy. I would prefer Big Game Hunter, which I think is very good right now. I would prefer Siphon Soul, which obviously is in the deck. I would prefer just Shadow Flaming something, or like playing Sylvanas. I don't think you need Blast Crystal Potion. I don't think this is necessary. You would never play it as just like a normal card in like a mid-rangey deck. You certainly won't play it in Control over your other options, even in a Reno type of list. So I think it's pretty unplayable. It's a powerful potion to get, though. You know, it's definitely a strong effect a lot of the time. But yeah, you know, compare it to Assassinate, it's just not good enough on average. Crystal Weavers is battle card, give your demons +1/+1. This is something I really have to think about. Like, I'm pretty sure this card's unplayable. If you compare it to like Defender of Argus, the conditions that you have to meet for this to be good enough for you are pretty absurd. It feels very unlikely that a card like this triggers on curve, because you want to be playing with cheap demons before it. I just don't see Zoo having the room for it. I prefer to play Barnes, I prefer to play Rag, I prefer to play the 5/4 Goblin that draws 3 cards in your hand. So, yeah, Crystal Weaver, I think, just too weak, but it's an interesting arena card. By interesting, I mean vanilla 5/4 that you will drop sometimes. He's not even a demon himself. We got Abyssal Enforcer, deal 3 damage to all other characters. It's a powerful card. Yeah, you'll definitely play it in the Reno lists. Outside of the Reno lists, I don't think you'll see too much play. Maybe there's a controlling Warlock deck that plays 2 copies of everything, because now you have the 1 mana healing guy. The 1 mana 2/2 neutral that gains 4 life for both players. But, yeah, I mean, it's, you know, it's costed pretty aggressively. It's a strong effect. Having access to another Hellfire is going to make Shaman's life so much harder. This card is insane against mid-range Shaman. And yeah, I think pretty clear card to just include in your slow Warlock decks. The aggressive ones aren't going to be playing it. Next we got Blood Fury Potion. Give a minion +3 attack. If it's a demon, also give it +3 health. It's just not going to see play. You'll get it randomly off of potions sometimes, but there's just no scenario where you end up playing it. I'm going to kind of speed up the rate that I'm doing this review at, because I'm like an hour 40 in, and I didn't even notice. We got Sea Devil Stingers as the next Murloc you play this turn, costs health instead of mana. Again, even in the Warlock Murloc deck, this is not good enough. Just compare the stats to Chillwind Yeti, and like tell me if that's worth it. If I'm playing like a War Leader or Cold Light Seer in the same turn, then actually how many stats like, per card am I getting? It's just so much worse than Zoo, it blows my mind. This card could have been like a 4/4, and it still would have been not good enough probably. Maybe there's something in future expansions that make Murlocs strong though. Moving on, we got Fellfire Potion, which is a really big Hellfire. I think you do play one in Reno Lock. It's important to have another sweeper, especially one in turn 6, which is not one. It's not a turn you've got a sweeper available for before. It's a lot of self-inflicted damage in Warlock now, so it's nice to have meaningful 1-drop to help heal up, but that's kind of the only good healing. It's the only obvious thing I think in this set, so Warlock definitely needs more of that. If you draw Reno, you're set, your deck's awesome, but if you don't draw Reno, then you're going to win a hard game. Moving on, we got Unlicensed Apothecary. Whenever you summon a minion, deal 5 damage to your hero. I mean, I assume he triggers upon summoning himself as well. it's an interesting card. The thing about Warlock right now is, like, you wouldn't play this in a control deck. You would play this in an aggressive Warlock deck. So your art, it's worse than Dark Cleric Constant, and it's worse than a King Boss. So those 3 drops already take precedence. And then it's like the question is, do you want to play a 5th or a 6th 3-drop? And if so, is this really better than Argent Horse Rider? And I think the answer is probably no. There's just a lot of matchups where this isn't good enough, like Hunter. But like, for it to be good, it has to be staying alive, and when it's staying alive, you're killing yourself. It's tough for me to get behind this card, you know? But maybe, I don't know, it's ballsy. Maybe it's good enough to see playing, just like the most outrageously aggressive Z-Dog thing. I want to say it's like very unlikely. Ball Trafficker is just at the end of your turn, add a random demon to your hand. This card is just bad, I want to say. Emperor Thorson, too much stronger. Sylvanas is way too much stronger. You don't need that many 6-drops. Siphon Soul, you'd rather play. Yes, it gets value, but you don't need your expensive Warlock cards need to be catching you up on tempo. You don't need more value from your expensive Warlock cards because your hero power gives you value. So when I play a 6-drop, it needs to catch me up on tempo, which is why like the 7-mana demon guy, for example, is good, right? He hellfires when he comes into play. Like, that's what I want my expensive cards to do. If I want value, if I want to draw demons, I'm going to put them in my deck and I'm going to life tap. I don't need a really, really big Azure Drake at all. I mean, sure, it's like better than that, right? Because it forces them to kill it, or else it keeps drawing cards, but eh. Alright. Then we got Cruelly Unshackled, Battlecry. The deck has no duplicates. Summon all demons from your hand. So it says summon, so I assume you get Battlecries. I notice there's a few summon cards. This is actually a rules check question that I have to ask because it matters for this card and it matters for the rat, the 2-drop rat, Dirty Rat or whatever it's called. Cruelly Unshackled is a card that I think isn't good enough to put in the deck in Reno Lock. I think in Reno Lock, your only expensive demons you're playing is the 7-mana guy with Hellfires, Jiraxis. That's about it. You know, I don't want to be playing other garbage to make this card better. It's a 9-mana 7/9, so whatever demons I put into play have to kind of stabilize me. I just don't see enough demons being in Standard, at least, maybe in WoW, but in Standard, I just don't see there being enough demons that I want to have in my deck anyway that make this card worth it. So overall, like if I play Doomguard off of this, do I discard as well? Is that how that works? Not sure. Gotta figure that out. I mean, regardless, I think it's unplayable either way, regardless of how summoning works. But you know, not every single Reno legendary card has to be strong, and that's okay. Okay, so moving on to Warrior. We got I Know a God. A lot more taunts in this set. I don't love this card. If I'm playing like an Arcane Giant Battle Rage type of Warrior deck, I kind of like this because it's upping my spell count while also giving me a minion to play in the meantime. The drawback being, of course, that I'm paying an extra mana for a taunt minion that might be worse than just a taunt minion I put in my deck anyway. On the bright side, with a Warrior deck that wants a taunt minion, you're not going to be doing stuff on turn 1 too often. So it's like a Tempo King's Defender deck, but you wouldn't play that in this deck. You wouldn't play this in that deck. I Know a Guy in general, it's a very niche card for that Arcane Giant deck. I think outside of that, you'd rather just be